Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and welcome to a special edition of Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I'm here today to talk to you about why Asian and Pacific Islander representation matters, Part 3, television and music. So finally, I've gotten to the final part of this video, and it is part 3. The reason why I had to chop it up is because, well, when I was doing the whole movies thing, like movies as a whole, I realized something. This is going on really, really long, to over, what was it? 2.5 hours or something like that. So I had to crap, that's gonna be hard to save and that's gonna take forever to upload. So I decided to chop it into 3 parts. I thought about editing some stuff out, but I felt like what I had to say was very important, so I kept it. And so here we are in the final chapter, part 3, television and music. Music won't take that long. Hopefully this video won't be an hour, but hey, you know me, I love to talk. And so when it comes to that representation for the Pacific Islanders and Asian people, you gotta admit it's very scarce. And it's only scarce if you don't know where to look. See, while researching this, I realized something. Nickelodeon had tons and tons, and I mean tons, of Asian representation ever since the 90s. I'm talking about supporting cast members. I'm even talking about Asian people who had their own show. Yes, multiple ones had that in the Nickelodeon days and stuff. They outdid Disney big time. And I've never heard of none of those shows, and I mean none of them. Maybe because I don't watch Nickelodeon. I'm more of a Disney kind of person. And so, I'm just like, man, I never even knew this show existed back in the 90s, because, back then I didn't have cable and stuff. And I'm curious. I wonder if I can find some of this stuff on YouTube. But a lot of these shows did not last long. Some of these shows only lasted anywhere between 2 to 3, maybe 4 seasons. One just came to an end last year. And, it makes you now wonder, did the demographic that it was targeted to, did they even know it existed? Are they any good? Hey, I don't know, because like I said before, I've never seen them. And so, also, while researching this and stuff, I came upon a list on Wikipedia. Apparently, there were Asian representation somewhat back as far as the 60s and stuff like that, and 50s, and even further before that. On television, there was even an Asian, supposedly Asian predominant show. I say supposedly because not everybody there was really Asian. Yes, once again, they did yellow face. In fact, on the list I'm showing you, I'm very shocked and surprised there's been as much yellow face in both movies and television. I know in movies, but I did not know in television. And I could not believe some of the stars that I personally like has pretended to be Asian. I never really watched How I Met Your Mother. I only watched 2 episodes. One in the middle and the finale. I did not know the cast dressed up in yellow face. What the actual you know what? I can't believe that. And that was in the 2000s, the late 2000s, just a few years ago. And what broke my heart even more was when Ted Raimi, the brother of Sam Raimi, the guy who played Joxer on Xena, dressed as an Asian man for Bruce Campbell's I Am Bruce movie. That hurts right there. That hurts right there. Those two are starting to make me wonder about them. I know they're from the 70s. I know they're old school comedians who like to offend people. And Ted has revealed both on Twitter that, like, not only does he hate his Jockster character, but there's some movie he loves to death. He protested against online called Maz T's Falcon or something like that. I don't know. I've never seen it. I don't even know what it's about. Apparently, it's super problematic today, and he says he doesn't care who hates this movie, how offensive it is. It's one of his favorite movies of all time. And I'm just kind of like, Theodore, don't turn into Kevin Sorbo, please. 'Cause when it comes to him and Bruce Campbell, especially Bruce Campbell, Bruce is starting to make me wonder, man. There's always been rumblings that he's like, he's old school, has no filter kind of person. And like when it came to the Evil Dead series, he said that the reason why this show was so great is because they have no filter. They just say whatever. And I'm just kind of like, man, it is not the 1970s no more. All right. We are living in a different era, and it's time to get out of that crap. And so this list that you see is a lot of like stars that are white who have done yellow face. I am still baffled by how many there are. And it is quite shocking. Very, very shocking. And so, just like with movies, you rarely see Asian people like on TV. However, you will see them a bit more on TV than you will the movies. It's just, once again, you gotta know where to look. And a lot of these shows don't do so well. Some do, some struggle, depending on what network they are, depending on how good the writing is, and depends on what the show is even about. And so first I'm gonna go into things where it was like bad Asian representation, mostly yellow face. Then I'm gonna go into shows that I've watched that had Asian representation, especially with the first Asian person I've ever saw on TV. And then I'm going to get into those Nickelodeon shows that I've never even heard about. And then I'm going to go into music, and hopefully I will be done. So I'm going to try to speed this one up a little bit. I probably will leave some shows out. I got to remember not to leave everything out. I'm not going to go into too much detail what these shows are about. Some I've already talked about. Some I'm going to talk about in the future. And other shows you can just find and watch for your own. This is just to give you the gist of it all and everything. And so, with that said, let's talk about a show that I've actually never heard of until I was researching this. So, James Hong, he is about, well, actually, he has received his Hollywood, like, what is it, Walk of Fame star, they call it like that. And so as I was researching him, like I told you before, this man has been in everything. I'm always seeing him popping in and stuff, mostly playing waiters and stuff like that. Small little guest appearances. And so I was looking at stuff, see, like, has he ever been a part of any movies? Have he ever been a part of any TV shows? Stuff like that, And there was one show that he was on for about 32 episodes or so. And they called The Adventures of Charlie Chan. And so with that, it lasted, I think, for like 2 seasons. And like, he was like, it came out in like 1957. And so like, the thing about this show is that it revolves around, it's a crime drama, and it revolves around a man playing his father, Charlie Chan. And so I think only the sons were Asian. However, the person playing Charlie Chan was Italian, of all things. And I'm just kind of like, really? How in the world does an Italian person look Chinese? You know what I'm saying? And the worst part of it all is that I remember on a Disney show, they had an Italian lady play a Mexican. And I remember on Fear the Walking Dead, they had another Italian playing a Mexican. Italian people look Italian, people. But however, James said he was fired from this show because the lead actor, the Italian guy, got him fired because like the actor was being racist towards him. Now that actor is J. Carroll Nash. I've never heard of that man, but it is really terrible that that man would be racist towards that of James and everything, especially how he's playing yellow face. Klingons have been a staple of Star Trek ever since the original series, but they used to look so different. They didn't have the money for all the forehead prosthetics and stuff like that. But the thing about Klingons, they're dark skinned, and so they have brown skin color, and so basically they doing brown or black face. B'Elanna was the only one to not do that, being, I believe she's Hispanic, but she's very light skinned. And she was the only light skinned Klingon on Star Trek Voyager many years later. And so when it comes to Klingons, I was very shocked to find out that they're actually a mockery of Chinese men. The mustaches, the eyes, the clothing, they was made to disrespect Asian men, mostly Chinese men, because during that time, I believe America was going through some war. I can't remember. It might have been Vietnam War or something like that. And it was around the time America, well, white America, did not like Chinese people or Asian people whatsoever. And so the Klingon were like barbarian warriors and everything, and that's how they viewed the Chinese. And what makes it even worse is that, like I said before, you know how like in a show or movie, the people they have like those stage chairs and they have their names on it. On the back of the Klingons were the most offensive Asian slurs you can think about. And it makes you wonder how in the world could something like this fly by? And that's only because of the simple fact it was the 1960s and things were much different back then. Things were very, very, very racist and prejudiced back in those days. And it is truly disgusting knowing one of the most famous alien species is nothing more but a mockery of a person's race. But when it also comes to Star Trek, let's not forget Sulu. In fact, let's just get into every Asian person who has ever appeared in Star Trek, having either that of a major role or a recurring role. Star Trek is very diverse, but they don't always treat their diverse characters and stars very friendly. In fact, some of them have to fight just to be on screen. Because when it comes to that of the women, and back in the 1960s, the original series, Uhura, who's black, and well, I guess I can put her in the woman category. Let's just put her in the woman category because once it got into Next Generation, the black people started to get respect, but it's the Asian people and the women who did not. But since this is about like Asian video, they were disrespected to the point of barely having any screen time. In the original series, Sulu was the helmsman, and he really never got to go on away missions that much. He never really got to say anything of vital importance, significance, and he never had a solo episode that I can think of. And you know, this is quite a shame. They put him front and center for a reason, to be diverse. Because, you know, Gene Roddenberry was all about diversity. But Gene Roddenberry had to fight tooth and nails with the TV network because they didn't want certain people on the show. They didn't want him to have a first officer who was a female, number one. That's why she got taken out from the original pilot. They did not want Uhura and Sulu to be on the bridge because of the simple fact of their race. And so because of that, Sulu is like, you know, never had like a big supporting role on the show. Now, when the 2009 JJ movies came around, Sulu was upgraded big time. He took command of the ship when the captain was away, and some other stuff. Had some really good fight scenes. And, but when it comes to other Star Trek shows, Asian people, like I said before, had to fight just to be on the show. In the Next Generation, there was no Asian person who was a main cast member or a bridge member. The only one that I can remember on the show is Keiko. She was the wife of Chief O'Brien. Chief O'Brien was a recurring character. So whenever he got to appear on screen, then and then only did she get to appear on screen. And it was very short-lived because she's the wife of a recurring character. She pops in, she pops out. But she always has significance to whatever her character was doing at that time, whether it's being kidnapped, getting married, being pregnant, delivering the baby, or that time she de-aged and became a child again. But then she would later accompany him on Deep Space Nine, where he was a main character. However, she barely appeared on the show and she became a teacher. There's no use for a teacher on a Star Trek show. So she just popped in and she popped out and everything. Then you get to, because also Deep Space Nine didn't have no Asian character as well. But then you get to Voyager, the second prominent Asian person on a Star Trek show. And they happen to made him an ensign, one of the lowest ranks there is in Star Trek, next to that of a crewman and next to that of a petty officer. And so Ensign Kim, played by Garrett Wang, I believe his name is, this dude said literally he had to fight tooth and nails just to be on the show and get solo episodes. Seasons would go by and he would barely do anything, and he would never have a solo episode. So in one special episode, they gave him everything he asked for: action, a solo episode, drama, a love interest. He said he got everything he wanted. He just didn't want it crammed into one episode and one episode only. And they kept him an ensign throughout the entirety of the show, when in 4 years, an ensign's supposed to be a lieutenant. And he had some really good solo episodes, but he literally had to fight with the executives to give him those solo episodes in later seasons. When they did, they gave him things like him taking his own command, him making mistakes, him falling in love. But these were not all put in the same episode. They were finally spread out. However, you think all of that would have changed things when the next Star Trek show came around, Star Trek Enterprise, but it did not. I honestly can't even remember the name of the Asian character from Star Trek Enterprise. All I know is that she is a ensign, and she barely appeared on the show, just like that of Ensign Kim. But she wasn't the only person. Mayweather, I remember his name, the black dude, he barely appeared as well. And he barely had any solo episodes, and neither did she. I think her name is Hoshi. I want to say Hoshi Sato. I think it's Hoshi, I think. That's what I think it is. I don't have my computer or tablet with me right now. But yeah, she was barely on the show. And then Star Trek took a hiatus, and then they came back with New Trek. New Trek. And once again, the Asian characters barely do anything in New Trek. With Star Trek Discovery, they only focus on a few of the main characters. Everybody else on the bridge, you don't know their name and you don't know their rank. There is an Asian dude on Discovery, and still till this day, I don't know what he does, and I don't know his name, and he barely says and barely does anything. And I don't know about Lower Decks because I don't watch that cartoon series. There are no Asian people in Prodigy because they're aliens. And let's see what was else. Strange New Worlds. They have a main Asian character, and I've only watched one episode, but from what I hear, she's a very important character. How much screen time does she actually get Yo, that I don't know. Because like I said before, I haven't seen it because I don't have Paramount Plus. But I have seen the first season of Star Trek Picard, and there it finally focuses on an Asian character. She is the main character of the show, but she almost doomed all of humanity and stuff. And yeah, so it's weird. A program that's been around since the 60s and is all about diversity barely does anything with some of their characters. Alex Bronstein, she played Mrs. Swan on Mad TV, a sketch comedy show. And she played a very, very, very offensive Asian character many believe in everything. Now, I'm not 100% sure what her race is, that of the actress. She's Jewish, that I know, but it says here that she has German, Jewish, and Mongolian heritage in her. Now, many years later, a Puerto Rican model decided to dress up as Mrs. Swan, looking as offensive as you can get. Ugh, I hope my neighbor's music doesn't get picked up on here. They blasting their music because they're crazy in the head. Anyway, there used to be this cartoon called The Winx Club, I think. I'm not sure, I never watched it. But it was about like these little fairies and stuff. And each fairy was based off of a celebrity that was really famous at the time. Netflix decided that they was gonna make a live action adaptation of it called The Winx Saga. And so like a lot of people just did not like it because it didn't resemble nothing of the cartoon. The two main problems on the show other than that was that, like I said before, each fairy is based off of a famous actress or singer or something like that. There's this one fairy that's based off of Lucy Liu, a very famous Asian actress. And for the show, they decided to cast a white girl in the role, which really pissed a lot of people off. They did the same thing with the Hispanic character, who was supposed to be based off of Jennifer Lopez. So this caused a huge thing of controversy. And what made it worse is that the actress playing the supposed Asian character decided to defend herself. Now, I get it. She's happy to be on TV and all this other stuff. But this was a controversial casting, and she should have known better. And since everybody was up in arms with it, the last thing she should have done was defend her right to play this role. Eva Longoria, who was the only Latino person, her and her family, in the Desperate Housewives. Desperate Housewives lasted for 8 seasons on ABC. It's a comedy drama, and all the housewives were always white. And the only person of color was Eva Longoria's character and her family. Now, they did introduce 2 black housewives. One only lasted for the 2nd season, and that was a terribly written storyline. And then another one popped up towards the end of the series, and she lasted on there, but still written as a terrible person. And never once were there ever an Asian, housewife, like never in the 8 years that show's been on. And Eva Longoria got pissed because Mark Cherry, the creator, will always play Latino music when her or another Latino person would show up. And she told him, look, dude, that's like offensive, stop doing that. So he stopped. Now, there's only been 2 Asian people on the show. In the first season, the actress who plays Grandma in Fresh Off the Boat she was in that, and she played a maid, and that's it. And the Eva Longoria character was so rude to the Asian character, both the Asian characters actually. And so like she was always rude to this woman and stuff. And the woman played like a maid for like 7 episodes and was barely in the show. Then in the 3rd season, they brought on another Asian actress. I forget the actress's name. I think it's Gwendolyn, I think. She's mostly a voice actress. And I remember seeing her thinking to myself, oh my God, she is gorgeous and everything. And so, like, on the show, she was, I think, like an immigrant who was there illegally. And so what Eva Longoria's character did was made her into her, like her new maid and everything. But then when they found out she's there illegally, they somehow they let her like, stay on the what is it? They let her stay in their house. Why? Because Eva's character could not get pregnant. So they was gonna use the Asian woman's egg to get Eva, her child. And they said once you have an American baby, you can stay in the country. So, of course, she was going to use the husband Carlos's sperm. But Carlos saw the Asian lady naked, and that got him horny, and they started having an affair. And so then when she gave birth to the baby didn't come out Asian and Mexican. The baby came out Asian and black. After that, she was written off the show, and that was that. And that's the only Asian representation that was ever shown on Desperate Housewives. And it's just kind of like they was treated with such disrespect and everything. Kung Fu started David Carradine, and he's white and Native American, and he played a Asian man throughout that entire movies and television shows and everything. And it was baffling because a lot of people assumed that he was Asian and stuff. Then, many decades later, they came out with Kung Fu The Legend Continues. Now, I never saw the original Kung Fu, but I did watch Kung Fu The Legend Continues, and I really enjoyed that as a kid in the 90s. And I had no idea that David wasn't even Asian. In fact, I think it was like I think it was my sister told me that, yeah, he's like white and everything. I was shocked and baffled by that because I could not believe it, because I assumed, okay, this is what television is telling me, then it must be true. And it was not. But then that explains the guy who played his son. And I kept looking at him, I'm like, okay, I know he's white. So how is he Asian and stuff? And so I was always confused. And so, like, he played that role for like the longest time. And, it really sucks because I don't remember nothing about Kung Fu The Legend Continues at all. And I started watching clips of it again because I just now started watching the CW Kung Fu series that just got canceled. And I wanted to remember what the original, my original series was like, And I just remember watching it, and it's a different vibe and everything. And it's really sad that that show is in controversy because when I watch it, the clips online, I can't help but to put on my rose-colored glasses, and I'm just like, man, that is so racist. That is so racist for a show that I generally love and everything. And I started reading comments when it came to the original Kung Fu series, and comment after comment, and people praising the show and movies, talking about how they got into martial arts because of this, how the lead character inspired hope and was good representation, although it's not because he's not really Asian. And then I read one comment of somebody talking about they wish somebody had the guts to put this on streaming, and somebody asked them, what do you mean? And they all like, and then of course they use the term snowflake, talking about, okay, he's not really Asian, and it's modern day, blah, 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 and stuff like that. I'm just thinking to myself, you don't get it. Like, you just don't get it. It's problematic. And then I read somewhere, somebody talking about, oh, they were to make it today, they would have like his sensei gay, and they would have the lead character transgender, just to mock it. Like, why do people go that far just to hate on something? I don't get it. Like, if they love this series, fine. Like, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I love Kung Fu The Legend Continues. But when I watch the clips, or if I ever find it like on like a rerun or whatever, I'm gonna enjoy it, but in the back of my head, I'm gonna say, I can't believe what they're doing. I can't believe what they're doing. Like, I just can't believe what they did. You know what I'm saying? And they should have known better. Now, Bruce Lee's show actually did kind of get made in a show called Warrior on HBO Max, which will be turned into Max on the 23rd of May. And like the first two seasons are there, the third is coming out, and it stars a predominantly Asian cast of a man looking for his relative in America, and going through the trials and tribulations of hatred that was presented in the 1800s and stuff. And it's a really good series. Although the lead character, they're starting to kind of make him into like a bad guy, which I do not like, because he works for like a gang and stuff. I would prefer if he was like the hero, because I don't like rooting for bad guys. However, many decades later, and I do mean many decades later, over 30 something years, they finally corrected this in the form of Kung Fu that appeared on the CW. This show lasted for 3 seasons and it came out in 2021. Here they decided that they are finally going to make this a predominantly Asian show, in which they did. And I've only watched the first season. I don't have HBO Max anymore, which is now Max. I'm gonna watch the third on the CW app, and whenever I'm able to watch the second, I'll be able to watch it then. For the most part, for the first season, it's an okay show. Like, it's not bad, but it is a CW show, so it's not all that great either. There are some things I have problems with in this show, but for the most part, it's a pretty solid show. It's decent, but the show got really, really, really low ratings and stuff. In fact, I don't even think they got up into the millions, I don't believe. But this show, they decided instead of focusing on a male, they focused on a female. And the actress, Olivia Lang, she plays Nikki. And so, like, she's a former Shaolin monk who comes home becomes a vigilante and wants to avenge her sensei. So she has to find, in the first seasons, all of these mystical weapons, especially this sword. Turns out that she's also part of like a warrior like clan and everything that gets passed down generation by generation, but skips a couple of them. And so, like, I do wonder, how does the Asian community feel about this show? Because a lot of people in the Asian community don't like Wendy Wu, Homecoming Warrior from Disney Channel, because they said Disney Channel's very first thing, and they made it into a martial arts Asian show. The CW, they made this show into a martial arts Asian like type show. And so, like, I believe this might be the CW's very first predominantly Asian show, I believe, because they are a mixture of the WB and UPN. Now, UPN had an Asian lead in one of their shows Russell Wong was in a long time ago, but that only lasted a season. And so, like, it does make me wonder how the Asian community feel about this show, because, like I said before, it deals with mystical magic stuff. It deals in martial arts. The character's brother is a doctor, and you know how they feel about that. Also, her sister is a valley girl. You know how they feel about that. Which I've been wondering about something. How come every time you see an Asian female on TV, they're normally the valley girl type? Like, have you ever noticed that? I always wonder why that is. Most Asian women I've met don't act like valley girls and stuff. But for the most part, like I said before, it's a pretty solid show and everything. And it only lasted for 3 seasons. The only reason why it lasted for 3 seasons is because CW is folding into Nexstar, and they didn't want to keep the show. The Gallery of Madame Lou Tongs. I'm not really sure how to say that. It stars that of Anna May Wong. She was the first like Chinese actress to appear in American cinema. And so that show was about, it was kind of like a crime spy type thing, where she had like this art gallery and she would collect like Chinese art. And she left America because she got tired of being stereotyped. So she went over to like England, I believe it was, and there she had a much better career, appearing in like British, French, and like German stuff. And it's quite a shame they kept putting her in the stereotypical type roles. One can only imagine what those were. Bruce Lee is considered one of the biggest Asian stars of all time, one of the biggest action stars of all time, dominating the movie force in the 70s and stuff when he came to America. But he also appeared in that of the small screen. See, he was on a show called The Green Hornet where he played Kato and everything. I think that show only lasted one season. He was the assistant and he did a lot of martial arts, introducing people once again to martial arts. Now, they came out with a movie many years ago. The movie didn't do so well. I think it's funny. Like, I own it on DVD, but I can see why people probably didn't like it because it was so far removed from that of the television show. His son Brandon Lee, who I also forgot to mention during the movie section, starred in The Crow, as well as other television stuff appearing here and there. He even appeared in Kung Fu, and so the original one. But sadly, his life was taken from him when a bullet was loaded into the chamber of a prop gun by mistake. But he played The Crow. And The Crow was a big movie of the 90s. I still have not seen that. Now, the character of The Crow is originally like a white guy in the comics, but they decided to go with a half white, half Chinese actor in the form of Brandon Lee. And he even redid the makeup of like The Crow. He's supposed to have a normal regular face, but he put white makeup with black outlines and long black hair because his character was in a rock band. And this look has solidified The Crow for many years to where when they made spin-off DVDs, they kept that look. It was so famous that the wrestler Sting reinvented himself to look like The Crow in the 90s in WCW and still to this day. And The Crow got a short-lived television series in the form of The Crow Stairway to Heaven. He is played by none other than the host of Iron Chef, Mark Dacascos. Yeah, boy, could you believe that? I only watched one episode. I remember it was late, like Saturday nights, something like that. I was probably in middle or high school, and I used to watch a lot of syndicated stuff, so I would stay up really late, see what they got, and I saw The Crow Stairway of Heaven. I'm all like, I didn't know they made a show out of this. And so I watched one episode, and that was about it. I can't find it nowhere on streaming. From 2010 to 2013, the CW decided to reboot Le Femme Nikita, a French movie about a woman who goes like undercover in different disguises and works for like this special spy type organization. It was later rebooted into a television show in the 90s, but in 2010 they decided to reboot it once again on the CW, starring that of Maggie Q. And the show struggled for many, 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 many seasons. I like Maggie Q. I think she's like a really good actress. I love when she does martial arts. However, the show was kind of bland, kind of boring and stuff. But at least she gave it her all. And then after that, she went to like, I believe a medical, I don't know if it was a medical drama or it was another cop type show. It was on CBS. I think it was Ransom, I believe it was. In the 90s, Fox decided to make a predominantly Asian show about a Chinese family, starring that of Margaret Cho, and it was called American Girl. However, it only lasted one season. I remember watching this, but the thing is, I don't remember nothing from this show, and I mean absolutely nothing. And This show, a lot of people look down on this show because they assumed one, it was going to star a Chinese family. However, they had just about every type of Asian you can think of as this one Chinese family. So not only was not cast appropriately, but the main character was just that, an American girl. A lot of people say they remember not really knowing nothing about Asian people or what they're like, their struggles or anything. They had her be about as plain Jane as can be. Basically, it was sitcom like hijinks, comedy hijinks and stuff. But they had her acting like a typical white American girl. And so it got canceled after one season. It is quite a shame that, like, after so many decades, they will try once again to have real Asian representation, only not to know how to write these characters. Then this show popped up in the 2000s. Fresh Off the Boat came around the 2010s, and I believe it was the 2010s. And I really enjoyed the first season of this show. However, after that, I liked it still and I kept watching it till the end. It's just I didn't love it as much as the original. This show was based off of Eddie Wong's real life, a book he wrote called Fresh Off the Boat about his Chinese family living in Florida. And so his parents and his grandmother were all from China. And it was just him and his three brothers. And they was trying to immigrate into that of Asian, into that of American society. And so like his father had a restaurant, and the first season explored somewhat like what he went through, mostly the first episode. The real Eddie Wong, he narrated the show. However, he was not pleased with this show. He said it kept drifting farther and further away from that of his actual real life. And instead, the network tried to portray an Asian family into that of a white sitcom comedy hijinks type show to try to appeal to that, I guess, of a white audience and stuff. And that's something they always do. It's a sitcom, so they went more of the friendlier route and more of the hijinks route and stuff. And he did not like that depiction. He did not like how his family was portrayed on screen, having people think this is what he actually went through growing up. Also, like, for him, like, he had a pretty rough, childhood. When he went to school, kids made fun of him because of his race. Kids made fun of him because of his appearance. They made fun of him because of the food his mom would pack for him. And in the first episode, yeah, a black kid did call him a slur. And he said that, in real life, he understood where that guy was coming from. Because if that guy didn't do it, he would get picked on himself. But no matter what, he got picked on as well. And then in the closing of the show, he did not want to say a certain phrase. He didn't want to say, a black kid and an Asian kid bonding over a Jewish rapper. Isn't America great? Because one, they didn't bond over a Jewish rapper. They bonded over a black rapper. And not only that, he just didn't want to say, isn't America great for that? Trying to say that, oh, since they have now come together, everything's all like hunky-dory and everything, And so he had to compromise on what to say. So the phrase was shifted around. After the first season, he left. And the show kind of got stale after that. It was kind of boring. It started to focus more on the family and not that of Eddie. And when it came to him, like I said before, he had a rough upbringing. His parents were super strict, especially that of his father. His father was physically abusive to him. In their household, you had to get straight A's. If you got a B, you would get smacked around by his father and everything. And in the show, they don't depict that. In the show, his father is very bubbly and happy and all that other stuff. And he felt like it just did not depict who he was, and that hard upbringing of like strict, like, study, and education and stuff, that is something that seems to be prominent in a lot of Asian households and stuff. They value education because, of course, with education comes good job. With a good job comes lots and lots of money. And, so one thing I've always seen in so many Asian shows is that, they are very strict on their kids to like study, study, study. Some Asian people hate that and they say it's just a stereotype, but just like I say, stereotypes are based on reality. It sucks, but it's the fact of the truth of the matter of it all and everything. And so, like, I know with this show, I learned a lot from Asian like society. I learned about Chinese New Year. I learned about the Asian flush. Never knew that when y'all get drunk. I learned about CLC and everything, which had, or him and his brothers had to go to. I never knew there was such a thing where a lot of Asian parents enrolled their kids into like a Chinese learning center after their regular like American school and stuff. And like, after him in hip hop, they seemed to make it on the show that he was just like loving like ghetto culture and hip hop culture and everything for the fun of it, when in reality he got influenced into it because it was escapism from his abusive father and everything. And that show, as like, it sucks that the network wanted to be a typical sitcom and everything, but I will say it really truly did have a lot of good influence on teaching people about Asian culture and stuff, and it had a lot of good messages that the show like tried to come across: racism, prejudice, trying to integrate into like American society, not losing who you are, stuff like that. And what was it? It was something about that show. I know that the actor who played Eddie, it's funny because his father is the one who helped get American Girl canceled and stuff. Speaking of the dude who played Eddie, that dude's in Harvard now, so way to go. And so, like, with this show, they had one really important episode. And that episode was that the father, played by Randall Park, who's not Chinese or Taiwanese, he's Korean and stuff, which caused a little controversy, but he had the creator's blessing and all that thing, the real Eddie. And so, like, in this episode, he gets I think he's promoting his restaurant. So he's on the news and he decides to be goofy silly. And so when he's being goofy silly, that angers that of his wife. Because she tells him, 'cause it was 1995, the time setting of the show. And she tells him not a lot of people know about Asian folks. And so what they see on TV, they think that is it. And for him to act like a silly, goofy, like, like Breakfast at Tiffany's type person, that is offensive and everything. And it took him a while to figure that out, because it is true. TV teach people a lot of stuff. I never knew that Chinese men were put into slavery in Cuba until I watched a show called Warrior. And, I never knew that in Asian households, they don't walk in the house with their shoes on. It's either their slippers or they're barefooted. And I learned that from like anime and stuff. And so you do tend to learn things from what you see. And of course, if you see somebody act a certain way, you're going to probably assume, if you haven't been integrated with that type of like culture, you're gonna assume that's how they are. So that was a really important message. There was another episode I talked about a couple of days ago about how their kids are integrating too much into American society, to where the mom feels like, they're losing that of their heritage and stuff. Because people are saying that, oh, sometimes I forget you're Chinese, you act just like us and you sound like us and all this other stuff. So the mom started to really, really push like the Chinese agenda on her kids and stuff. But then she realized herself that, she likes doing things kind of like the American way. And it's okay to immigrate just as long as you don't lose who you are. You know what I'm saying? And like, that reminds me of Julie Chen. Julie Chen is the host of the reality show Big Brother, and she is the former moderator of The Talk. The Talk is like The View, and it's on CBS. Why is she the former moderator? Well, she had to resign. See, let's go back into a little history. When she was on The Talk, she revealed some things about herself. Oh, let me just say, I no longer like Julie Chen, period. I have lost all respect for her. Just like many people, I became a fan of hers because of Big Brother. And let's face it, she's just hot. I mean, because she doesn't have much of a personality or anything else. She's been the host since season one, but she has a very bland personality to where people have literally nicknamed her Chenbot because she's so robotic and everything. And but like on The Talk, you see her trying to act whenever they do a skit. She can't act. But she's a very lovely woman and everything. So a lot of people liked her because of that. And a lot of people crush on her. Well, she revealed years ago that I forget where she was born, but she's Chinese. And she tried to get into the news business, like on television, but they would not let her back in the days. Why? Well, the picture on the left that you see is actually Julie Chen. It's how she used to look. See, they told her she's too Asian looking. So Julie Chen, badly wanting to be like, on TV and have a career and be successful in the news journalism, she decided to have surgery, Western surgery, to erase her Asian features. When I found that out, I was mortified. I could not believe it. I'm all like, dude, you changed your face to look white. How can you do that? But she did it because she felt like if she didn't, she would not get nowhere. But in essence, she still didn't really get nowhere because she's not in news journalism. See what happened after that. When that didn't work out for her, she married a rich man. I believe he's white, so she married a rich white dude, or he's Jewish, but most likely he looks white. Oh, then he might be Jewish because of the last name. And that's interesting because when researching all this stuff about like the celebrities, Asian celebrities and this and that, I've noticed every Asian female actress that like I follow is either dating or married to a white guy. And then I noticed something when I looked around town. Every time I see an Asian woman, if she's not with an Asian man, she's with a white man, and mostly a white military man. I'm just like, that can't be a coincidence because it's all over my city. But there ain't that many Asian people in my city. So then I went to YouTube to see if this is actual thing. Why do Asian women always go for white men? And there's a couple of videos, all by Asian people. Some sound it makes sense when what I heard, except for one thing. I don't believe that, but the other stuff seems to make sense because I remember some Asian celebrities said that their parent told them, try to get in good with the white people. Don't bring no black people to my house. Because of the simple fact, they want to be ahead in life. They want to be successful. And of course, white people dominate like the Western world and everything, But anyway, back to Julie Chen. That is kind of interesting when you think about it. And so, every celebrity I follow that's Asian is with a white person and stuff. But anyway, back to Julie Chen. So she married a rich dude, the man who owns CBS. Or he used to, I should say. He got demoted. See, there's rumors that he was married to another woman when Julie Chen walked into the picture. So if that's true, they had an affair. And she got that man. And she got married and she made a baby by him. But why did I also lose more respect for her other than her changing her face? Well, Her husband, like I said before, got demoted at CBS. He still has a high ranking position, it's just not as high as before. See, he got caught up in a Me Too scandal. Tons of female celebrities came forward and said that he did some things he should not have done. And I believe those women, especially ones that one celebrity I did not believe were one of them because I'm a fan of hers, and she was one who got in his crosshairs. I don't know exactly what happened. I think it was more like misconduct type stuff than anything else. But needless to say, that actress I'm a fan of got paid millions of dollars because he lost the lawsuit or he settled. And if you have to settle, you're pretty much guilty. And so, what did she do? And why am I exactly mad at her? I'm mad at him more than anything else. But I'm disappointed in what she did. See, I call her Julie Chen. That's what she's been known by for over 20, 30 years. And so, like, professionally and everything, even though she's married, she has never went by her married last name. But after this scandal, she started going by her husband's last name of Munez and stuff. And people's all like, she did this to make a point, and she did it live on Big Brother. She made a point that she's sticking by her husband and therefore she did not believe these women and stuff like that. She basically pulled a Kamel like Cosby thing, his wife, Bill Cosby wife and everything. She stuck by her dirty man. And I'm sorry, but that's a deal breaker for me. I mean, she's literally by publicly coming out and with his last name, she is basically saying she does not believe those women, even though he had to pay a woman millions and stuff and he got demoted as a result. And I'm just kind of like, how in the world can you turn your back on a woman when she said she's been treated badly by a man? I mean, believe them first, investigate second. And so, because of that, she stepped down from the talk because just a week prior, she was going. Well, they were discussing on the show about another celebrity who got in trouble during the Me Too movement and how their wife stuck by them. So she can't be on that show and talk about stuff like that because she would be a hypocrite. So she had to step down. And she still goes by his last name and she still has her job at Big Brother, but that's the only one she has left. So as a result, she changed her face, married a rich man by any means possible, and stuck that by him during his disgusting times. I cannot respect a person like that. I seriously can't. And it goes beyond doing what you have to do to make money because how can you live with yourself after that? I mean, what if you had a child and that child came to you and said somebody did something to them? Would you believe them? Like, you know what I'm saying? And I just can't believe it. Like, I just can't believe her. Speaking of an actual journalist, Lisa Ling is one of the most famous journalists that there is. She, I believe, is of Chinese descent, and I remember when I was in middle school or high school, they used to make us watch this thing called Channel One, and it was like a news channel, a very educational one at that too. And I remember seeing her there every morning, and I remember she would get down in the trenches no matter what she had to do. Like, she doesn't care; she'll get down and dirty in the swamp just to get the story. She later went on to be a part of The View, being the only Asian character to be on the panel. She later left and she had her own show on CNN. I'm not sure if she still has it or not, but she still does to this day journalism. Yaya Han is known as the queen of cosplay. She's appeared in a couple, I think, reality type stuff, I believe it was, or contest type stuff, but she has done millions and millions and millions of cosplay and stuff, and she's one of the more famous of them of all. For me, growing up in the 80s and 90s, I really didn't see that many Asian people on television. I don't remember seeing any in the 80s, but in the 90s, I remember all the Asian people I saw on Power Rangers. Power Rangers is the American show based off of a Japanese series called Super Sentai. And there, you have your colorful heroes and their costumes, and they fight the forces of evil. And I remember Power Rangers is a very diverse show. I've talked about it millions of times. And, Tweet, um, I can't think of her name right now. Like, I'm very tired. It's late at night. Twee, she played like Trini Kwan on like Power Rangers and Mighty Morphin the very first season. And I remember she was, I think, literally the very first Asian person I ever saw in a television series. And if it wasn't her, then it was probably the actress from California Dreams. And, originally, well, actually, also the person who plays the Red Ranger, he's half Japanese and stuff, but he's also Spanish and Native American, all kind of stuff. But for her, Twee, she was really, like I said before, the first Asian person I ever saw on television. And originally, it wasn't going to be that way. Originally, the Yellow Ranger was going to be Hispanic, but she wanted more money, and so she got fired. And then they brought in Twee and stuff. And sadly, Twee passed away in 2001, I believe it was, in a car accident. And ever since she appeared on Power Rangers, there's been Asian representation in nearly every Power Rangers show. I say nearly because of the simple fact that, like, in the Disney era, there were some seasons that didn't have an Asian person on the show. But an Asian person has appeared in nearly every season of Power Rangers. And the thing about them is that a lot of them don't really play stereotypes. And it's really great to know that a kids program is willing to put that extra step forward to show diversity when many adult shows do not. And one of the things that's really bugging when it comes to Power Rangers is that when they have like an martial arts type theme season, they always put a white person or another race other than Asian as the Red Ranger and say either them or their parent is the greatest martial arts person of all time, which is so weird, odd, and bizarre. But like I said before, there are some seasons that did not even have a single Asian person, which is very rare, but for whatever reason, the Disney era didn't. And this is when they moved to New Zealand. And so, like, there's even been like Samoan and like Maori representation in Power Rangers as well. And it's great knowing they have all these diverse people on this show, and it's a kids program of all things.